Hi everyone, Dr. Hatami is here. Let's keep up with the male reproductive system and talk about the testes, which testis is the primary organ of the male reproductive system or the male gonads. We consider the testes as the primary organs because they are responsible for producing sperm through the process is called spermatogenesis. And also it would be considered as the endocrine organ and is going to produce the hormone like testosterone hormone. So the testes are considered the primary organs because they are responsible for producing sperm and also they produce male sex hormone testosterone. Also, we learned before testes are found outside the body. Inside of a sac of skin is called scrotum. Because spermatogenesis is the process of sperm production which is very sensitive to temperature. So the testes cannot stay inside the body where it's too warm for them. And that's why they are located outside of the body inside of a sac of skin is called scrotum. The scrotum keeps the testes at a temperature about 3 degrees cooler than internal body temperature, which is actually necessary for healthy sperm production. Then the testes would be formed inside of the body in abdominal cavity before birth. During the last 2 months of the fetal development, they descend into the scrotum. It's very important that by birth the testes are located in the scrotum. If they are not, we call this condition as undescended testes, or we call this as cryptorchidism. So cryptorchidism is another name for undescended testes. This can lead to sterility because the warmer internal temperature prevents normal sperm formation. So in their seminal fluid, there is no viable sperm because the sperm production or spermatogenesis has been stopped because of this like in these undescended testes. Now let's take a look at inside of the testes. The interior of each testis, which is like a egg-shaped structure, is going to be divided into some lobules, which inside of each lobule there is a tightly coiled tubules. These tightly coiled tubules are called seminiferous tubules. The seminiferous tubules is a very important structure within the testes because that is a site for spermatogenesis. So site of spermatogenesis would be seminiferous tubule, which would be found inside of the testes. Let's take a look at this picture and see where we can find seminiferous tubule or what is the structure of the testis. So as you can see here, the membrane which is going to cover the testis is going to send some extensions inside of the testis and divide it to some partition which each is called lobule. And as you can see inside of its lobule, we are going to have a coiled seminiferous tubule. Let's cut a seminiferous tubule and look at the transverse section of the seminiferous tubule. So you can see this is like a tiny tube, so we can define a lumen inside, which as you can see inside of the lumen, we have this sperm found inside of the lumen, and also we can define a wall for seminiferous tubule. In the wall of the seminiferous tubule, we find different types of cells that participate in sperm formation. So that is a bigger picture of the wall of the seminiferous tubule. So as you can see here, this is outside and this is inside. So it means here we have the lumen, which then this sperm would be found here in the lumen. And the wall of the seminiferous tubule, from outside to inside, we can find different cells. We can find spermatogenic cells, these sperm cells, which are gonna be found in the spermatogenesis process. For example, we have spermatogonium, which their stem cells divide by mitosis to increase the cell numbers. And after mitosis, spermatogonium become primary spermatocyte, which they are diploid cells, means they have 46 chromosomes formed from spermatogonia. They are not able to do mitosis, so then they're going to start meiosis, which then through the meiosis phase 1, primary spermatocyte is going to make secondary spermatocyte. Then secondary spermatocytes continue the meiosis 2, and then they become the spermatids. So the spermatids produced after meiosis 2, these cells have 23 chromosomes, but they are round and not yet mature. So then you can see after spermatid, we are going to have the like immature sperm, but if you look at them, their shape is kind of different with the spermatids. So these are produced from spermatids after they go through a transformation process. Okay, so always these spermatogenic cells, spermatogonia, primary spermatocyte, secondary spermatocyte, spermatid, they actually need support and nourish. So we have a cell which is called Sertoli cell. So you cannot actually see the Sertoli cell in this picture or even in this picture because the Sertoli cell will be masked by these spermatogenic cells. So for example, if I want to draw a cut of the seminiferous tubule, lumen, and here this wall, so then you can see a very large cell, which this large cell, let me just draw a nucleus, that is our Sertoli cell. Okay, so they're going to be found here, like in the wall of the seminiferous tubule, and then we have these different spermatogenic cells on top of the Sertoli cells. Sertoli cells help regulate the entire process of spermatogenesis. Okay, so now you know this testis, which is responsible to produce sperm, it's composed of these tubule, seminiferous tubule, and we know the exact spermatogenesis happening there at the wall of the seminiferous tubule, right? For the testis, we said it's primary organ because in addition to produce sperm, it also can produce the sex hormone, right? Like the testosterone. But which structure is responsible to produce sex hormones? These cells are called interstitial cells, or we call them as Leydig cells. Leydig cells found in the spaces between the seminiferous tubule. So if I show you the boundary of each seminiferous tubule, so you can see it here, another seminiferous tubule here, another one here, and let's take a look at these spaces which we can find between the seminiferous tubule. These are endocrine cells because they're producing hormone, androgens, mainly testosterone hormone. Okay, so let's review. The seminiferous tubule is a coiled tubule going to be found within the testis. It's important because that is the site of sperm production, and we also look at the seminiferous tubule under microscope, we found in the wall of the seminiferous tubule, we have different spermatogenic cells from spermatogonia, the stem cells, to the spermatocyte, primary and secondary, which they undergo meiosis. And then we have spermatids, and then we are going to have a sperm, which is going to be like a different shape. Then we also talked about the Sertoli cells, which they're supporting, nourishing, and regulating the process of spermatogenesis, going to be found in the wall of the seminiferous tubule, which the other spermatogenetic cells would be found on top of the Sertoli cell. And also we talked about these Leydig cells, which are going to produce testosterone hormone. Okay, speaking about the spermatogenesis, let's take a look at this process of producing sperm. It includes two types of cell division. We have mitosis, cell division, mitosis, and we also have meiosis, cell division. Mitosis is the cell division that is going to increase the number of cells. So then spermatogonia is the stem cells, which they can go through mitosis and like increase the number of spermatogonia and become primary spermatocyte, which they have 46 chromosomes. But the purpose of having meiosis is that we are reducing the chromosome number from diploid, which is 46, to haploid, which is 23. Because we know at the end, sperm should fertilize the egg, and these together, they're going to make a single cell embryo, right? So we need the single cell embryo to have 46 chromosomes. That's the reason we need to decrease the number of chromosomes of the sperm and also egg in half. So then each should have 23 chromosomes. Then together, they're going to have 46 chromosomes. Okay. So then primary spermatocyte, which is the cells, they cannot do mitosis. They go under meiosis 1 to produce a secondary spermatocyte, which then secondary spermatocyte continue the meiosis 2 and producing spermatids, which the spermatids are haploid. They have 23 chromosomes, but these are the cell, which these cells are round. But we need a light sperm, which they have like a tail, which can provide them with movement, because the sperm should be able to move to reach to the oocyte. Then spermatids undergo spermatogenesis, which is spermatogenesis is a transformation process. So then this all process is called spermatogenesis, which, as I mentioned before, it composed of mitosis, meiosis, and plus spermatogenesis, the transformation of the like structure or shape of the sperm. Okay, all of this is gonna happen at the wall of the seminiferous tubule. But let's talk about the sperm. And you should know that the mature sperm has three main parts. It has a head region, it has a midpiece, and also it has the tail. The head contains the nucleus. So the nucleus or the genetic material would be found in the head of the sperm, and then it would be covered by a sac full of enzyme, which this is called acrosome. So the cap of enzyme, which actually needed for egg penetration. Without this enzyme, sperm cannot penetrate to the egg. So then the midpiece is actually full of the mitochondria, the organelle, which is going to produce the energy as ATP, as the sperm should be able to move, and for this movement is actually need the energy. And then finally tail, which is actually composed of flagellum, which flagellum is going to allow sperm to move toward the egg for fertilization. Okay, now let's finish this part with one question. As we discussed in this video, we talked about the structure of the testes and then the function of the testes. We talked about the seminiferous tubule, what is happening there. And this question is actually asking you, in which of the following structure does sperm production occurs? Spermatogenesis, right? We all know that the testis is the primary organ responsible for spermatogenesis. So if you cut the testis, you actually can see that inside of the testis, we have this coiled tubule. It's called seminiferous tubule. And then at the wall of the seminiferous tubule, we have the spermatogenic cells, we have Sertoli cell. What is happening here? Actually, spermatogenesis is happening here. So the seminiferous tubule is the coiled tubule found inside of the testis, which the spermatogenesis happening here. What is the prostate gland and seminal vesicle? These are accessory glands responsible to produce the seminal fluid, and epididymis is a duct which is going to transport the sperm, store the sperm, and also be able to allow the sperm to be mature. Okay, thank you so much for watching.